And we got sort of pulled into that because we were the only ones. So timing's everything, if anyone's listening. It's worth it to say the thing, but that just skyrocketed us. Like that was just like, okay, everyone gets it now.
Hey guys, welcome to the How I Got Here podcast. I am your host, Travis Waters, and I created this podcast to share stories that are worth telling. Whether it's someone going from zero to hero, hero to zero, or simply something in between. On today's episode, we're joined by the wonderful Miss Kehn. We learn about how she started with the fascination of horses, which went into horse racing, which went into iGaming. Let's go ahead and jump into our story with her now. Enjoy. Hey guys, it's me, Travis, with the How I Got Here podcast. On today's episode, we're talking to the lovely Miss Kehn. And for those who don't know you by name or face, let's start with a high-level overview of where you are right now in August 2025.
August 2025. Okay. Thanks for having me. First of all, Travis. My name's Kehn. I'm a co-founder of a company called Defy the Odds. Defy the Odds is a startup launchpad accelerator working to make entrepreneurship more inclusive across iGaming. Um, iGaming, fintech, and sports tech, that is. I I can tell you how we do that probably later down in the podcast, but we do it in a number of ways. We do some startup advisory. We're building a community for startups, investors, and subject matter experts. And then we're also working on the other side, bringing new money into the space, working with tier ones to better understand what's happening in the world of innovation in iGaming. I live in London in the UK, but I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. And I went to school in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky. So I'm a big basketball fan. How did I get here where I am now in August 2025? Um, I have worked in iGaming my entire career. My first job was in horse racing, way back in a year that started with 19. So that was a lot. We don't have enough time to talk about all that.
We have
But
all the time in the world.
that was my first job. And that's because I went to school in Kentucky. Everybody works in horse racing. If you go to school in Kentucky,
If
everybody.
if I can pause you right there real quick. So I don't want to fast forward too much or jump ahead too much. So if we can rewind the chronological timeline a little bit, where to kind of like set people up with the essentially where you started. I like to go all the way back to the first possible memory you have, no matter how old you were. Some people are 5 years old when they have this thought. Some people are in early high school. What was the first time that you ever had an idea of this is what I wanted to be when I grow up, and how young were you when that kind of kicked in?
I certainly gambling, gaming never crossed my mind.
Not when you were 5, you weren't thinking about that
Nope,
industry.
nope. Um, this is what I wanted to do with my life. This industry I knew I wanted to be a part of probably from my very first day working for an online sports book. And that was starting in 2006. So I could have been five. We could say I was five then.
Do you
But I wasn't. I was much older. My very first job in online gambling gaming, yeah, 2005 or six, and it was in Montreal, and I worked for an online sports book called Bodog, which you may or may not have heard of. I believe in North America now, it's an offshore book, but it is called Bovada, so some people might be familiar with it. But it was hands down the most fun of any job I've ever had in my entire life, save for what I'm doing right now. But it was hysterical and fun every day.
so
And I wanted to stay.
so we know that that kind of came around in the early 2000s, but even before
Mm.
that, do you remember? So it, anything else? Well, like you said, that was the first kind of inkling
Yeah.
into the iGaming space. But before that, like even as far back as your memory will allow you to go, is there any other idea of like what you had interest in high school or early college
Yeah,
or
I
anything
mean,
like
I
that?
I fell into horse racing by accident. I have a degree, I had a degree at that time in communications, and I went to work for the Jockey Club, which is basically the regulator for breeding and horse racing in North America. But like I said, everyone did. Everyone worked touched horse racing in some way, shape, or form. I had an amazing boss who showed me as in depth as you can get from the breeding shed all the way through to sitting in the press box at the Kentucky Derby. Like I got every single viewpoint that you can get in horse racing. Now, I have to say, when you get into horse racing, there are lifers, there are animal lovers, breeders. I love animals, but I was not that. There are people who are on the gambling side. I was not that. And I was also very young, and it tends to be an older demographic that are fans of horse racing or who work in horse racing. So for me, I was there for 5 years, which was, I think, quite probably long for the age I was at the time. And I really liked it, but I never thought that my career was ever going to be there, long term.
So is in your mindset at the time, was it more of like this is a great hobby that I love, or were you actually like saying like, is there a way to monetize this, or can I actually have this as a career?
Yeah, you know what? It was a good job. I worked there in Kentucky. They moved me to New York. I did my MBA in New York City. It was a great means to an end. I still have some of my greatest friends in life that work in that space. Um, but I can't say that either I gambled a lot on horse racing. When we were at the races, we placed a couple bets, but I'm not sure I fully really understood how it worked or that I wanted to do that. Not until I started working for an online sportsbook, like I said, when I was like, this is great. Um, and it's much more progressive, and we're reaching the right customers, and we're doing, we're making fun for everyone sort of thing, that I really bought into it.
And you started with the horse racing side of things. Was that while you were still
Yeah.
in Cleveland, or is that after you
I
left to
no, that
Kentucky?
that was in Kentucky. That was when I went to school in Kentucky. I went to UK. And after school, that's where I got a job straight out of school. So that's what I did.
I was gonna say because I one of the things I love most about this podcast that I'm now doing is kind of the small world concept where my in-laws are from Cleveland or in Cleveland, Ohio, around the Elyria side, and my uncle and one of my uncle and aunts-in-laws, I don't know if people refer to them as
Yeah.
that, but that's what they are. They actually are like one of the top equestrian trainer horse people like in the entire section.
Oh,
That's that section of Ohio. So I was like, if you
fancy.
did that, I was like, well, I wonder if you actually know like my uncle and aunt on that side, because that would have been the small world concept. But you didn't get into horse racing until the Kentucky.
Yeah, so like I said, the Jockey Club regulates the breeding and the racing side of things. Um, and for the most part, the races I were exposed to were in Kentucky, and then Triple Crown type stuff, the bigger events. I've been to a track or two, Thistledown, in Ohio, but yeah, haven't really explored too many non-bigger event type races.
So you're in
Maybe though, it's a very small industry. I
yeah.
might know that. What's her name? What's
They
the last
are
name?
uh Weitzel, Julie and Rick. Shout out to you guys, by the way, if you're watching this episode.
Hi, uncle and auntie-in-law from Cleveland, Elyria. I'm from the east side of Cleveland, so that's a little bit not my neighborhood, but um, good to know. There's more equestrian people in Ohio.
Interesting small world. So you're in Kentucky, you're into the horse racing scene.
Yeah,
At what
yeah.
point during this part of your life do you start to essentially, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, step away from the horse racing, go, okay, this was fun, like this, but I need to transition to focusing on career stuff because this is not gonna,
Yeah.
pay the bills.
Well, listen, I went back to get my MBA about 5 years in, and like I said, the Jockey Club had two offices, one in Kentucky, one in New York. I transferred up to New York to do my MBA at NYU. If anyone knows anything about, NYU is a very, very liberal arts school where the city's your classroom and that sort of thing. And you can craft your own MBA, and I did a sports entertainment business MBA, which meant I had a lot of very cool teachers, NFL agents, MLS, CMO, people that were working at like Ritz-Carlton in New York City. Like it was great. So I was doing that, meeting a whole sort of new world of people, which I would recommend anyone who wants to go back to school to do something like that, because it's just really, really smart people who choose school instead of sort of that. All your parents need, want you to go to school, that sort of thing. Um, but in the meantime, in that 2 years I was doing my MBA, I also met a guy who lived in Canada. He's now my husband. We live in the UK. But I decided to move up to Canada because I was living in New York City. I didn't even have anything like even a lease holding me there. I was pretty free spirit. So I decided to move up there when I was done. We chose Montreal because I thought it was a little bit different than New York City. So we moved to Montreal, and that's where I got the job with Bodog. The Bodog office was set up there on Kanawage Reservation. And because I had, what appeared to be some gambling experience, I did. More so than some people back in that day. I got a job working for them in their marketing department, and it was very fun.
Do you attribute your interest to take the MBA in the sports business side of things from the horse side of
Yeah,
your paths, or is there
yeah.
something else that kind of geared that?
Well, I was exposed to a lot of cool things like NBC Sports at the time was covering the Triple Crown, and I got to sort of escort the film crew around. And Michael Jordan had a box at the Derby and that sort of thing, right? So I think I was more attracted to the pull of the audience that these big events were doing, that horse racing was bringing in. Horse racing does a lot of things wrong, but they do one thing really right, and that's the invite, right? Like there's celebs, there's cooking, there's fashion, there's big television exposure, there's influencers for the big events. There's that sort of, it's very aesthetically pleasing. All the celebrities are going, and you can easily, not easily, because I can't, but it's much easier to own a horse than it is to own an NFL team or something like that, right? And get it to stardom. So I was really attracted to that side of things. And the pull that sports has with general fandom and engagement that sports does and can do for
On
most of the world.
so it's very interesting that you said that it's much easier to own a horse than an NFL team. So I can 100% understand that from the financial standpoint. But
Yeah.
something I was always curious about is so if you have like the an ancestor from the
Yes.
um, Seabiscuit lineage,
Yes.
essentially these prime relative horses are not necessarily a dime a dozen. So even though financially, of course, like the teams that are selling right now are growing for $4, $5, $6 billion for NFL side,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
it easy as long as you have enough money to throw around, or is it so hard to find somebody that has like that? Oh man, this is definitely going to win all the races because it has look at the lineage of the breeds or the thoroughbreds and stuff like that. If I'm even using
Um,
the correct
it-
terminology, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, sure. I get it. If you are looking to make money on horse racing, the money's in
Yeah.
the breeding,
Okay.
right? So you have to win something in order to send that horse to the breeding shed because that's what people want. They want a Kentucky Derby winner, they want a whatever, Grand National winner, that sort of thing, right? When they're buying their horses. And I have no idea what they sell for these days. I haven't paid attention in at least a decade. But um, they are much more affordable than buying a team. And it's the whole thing. You put together the manager, the trainer, the ownership group, all those types of things, right? The veterinarian, the jockey, what races they're going to go into. So it is very much like owning a sports team and managing that.
I always found that so interesting. I don't know,
You
just
can buy,
from
you can, Travis can buy a piece of a winning racehorse. Anyone can buy into a syndicate of a winning race.
I get like the left leg. That's the piece that I can get. Just the
I don't
rear
think they
left leg.
allocate actual pieces, but you can buy in. It is accessible to, and you know what? Like being a VIP and like getting full access is still available to most people. If you're a fan, you can meet all the jockeys, you can meet the owners, they're available, right? They're not like other sports.
I'm pretty sure I still have the attending the Kentucky Derby in general, just like not even being part of it, just attending it, being there in person. I feel like that's something that's been on my bucket list for a while, and I know essentially
Yeah.
it's easy. You just have to go there and
Mhm. It's very fun.
pay for the entrance, but just I don't know if it was time wise or whatever it may be, but maybe next year, who knows.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
where are you based? So you in California?
no, I'm in Central Florida. Yeah.
Central. Oh, you could go to Hollywood. There's some good races down there.
Yeah. I've the only tracks I've ever been to are the Greyhound ones because I know there's a lot of that in Florida. I think Florida's like the only state
Yeah.
that still allows for Greyhound racing.
Probably.
Um, but so story wise, we've now transitioned from finishing our degree, going to
Mm,
Montreal.
yep.
Did you get the opportunity at Bodog prior to you moving, or did you move and then get the opportunity?
I moved and then got the opportunity.
And how long did that take you essentially after you made that trip?
Um, I would say probably, well, immigrating to a different country, does slow you down a little
Yeah.
bit. You got to get your bearings. I would say it was probably a year after I moved up to Canada that I started working there.
And when you first got the first opportunity, what was, I guess, your title and all your responsibilities with that sports book?
Oh, I think
All of
my
them, it
first
sounds
title,
like.
this is the greatest thing ever. Okay. I think my first title was, first of all, they didn't even tell me what the brand was. Okay. So that it and you might have noticed this working in the space now. So some companies switch their parent company name a lot. And this was well before regulation in the US. Well before, because I lived through that as well. Um, so it wasn't regulated, but all their customers were from the US. But it wasn't unregulated. I mean, it was, there wasn't, they weren't shutting anyone down, let's say. Um, Most of the customers were from the US. I think still to this day, there's a lot of customers still in the US. I'm not sure. But I think my title was production manager. I think that was my first title. And I didn't keep that for very long. But what that was making sure all the arms of marketing, CRM acquisition, business intelligence, design and creative all work together, that it was all working together and on time and on budget sort of thing.
So
So very much an operational role.
I know you mentioned just now that this was definitely before the regulated side of the U.S. came to fruition, but how? So I guess just year wise, where are we right now? How far before
2000,
2018?
it's 10 years at least.
And so
It was like 2000, yeah,
for
it
that
was like 2007 or 8.
for that decade, was it all at Bodog? Was it all within a similar role? Were you consistently growing? So yeah,
Yeah,
paint
yeah.
that picture.
So I had that, but then I ended up managing all of those teams. So I had the design and creative team, I had the some business intelligence, I had SEO, I had product the market, like here's who we're going to target casino for, that sort of thing. So they were running the numbers in terms of the marketing. Um, and I was managing, I think I had like 30 people under me at one point managing. Um, in fact, at one point, people management is not great. So obviously you need to step away from that. But at that time, we also decided to launch a Canadian brand. So I stepped in to manage the launch of the Canadian brand, which was Bodog CA at the time. And then that was a successful launch. And after that, that was a couple of years down the road. And then after that, which is what got me to London because they opened a UK sports book. And I came over as marketing director to help them launch the UK sports book. And that was in 2012.
So you were there on day one of the Canadian sports book, and
Yeah.
then there day one for
Yeah.
the UK side. What do you think were the biggest differences between those two markets on the launching them anyway?
Well, Canada's was much smaller at the time. And not so used to sort of the sports betting. The UK was a very mature market in 2012, probably the most mature market that existed in the world, was regulated, and always also had established customers like William Hill, Paddy Power, Betfair, ones that still, Ladbrokes, that still exist today, Coral, um, that are still big companies today, right? And Entain used to be BWin and Party Poker. Um, so entering that market was a very noisy place to be, and trying to differentiate oneself in a very mature market of which you are an outsider is also very hard. And especially, but we tried to differentiate ourselves as a North American sports book. So focusing on things like NFL, MLB, sports that weren't necessarily that popular yet in the UK. Um, and that did not work.
So,
It
what
was
was,
not the right.
how long were you working for Bodog in Canada before you made that transition overseas and opened up the UK side?
Yeah, probably 5 years, 6 years. Um, yeah, it was probably 5 or 6 years. I decided to apply for the role when they were opening up the UK office and that initiative. It was, I remember we moved right after the Olympics in London in 2012, and we waited just because rents were really high when that was happening. Um, and yeah, I'll say it was short-lived because my job immediately moved to the Philippines. This is the Wild West of gaming now, Travis. You're learning all these things.
I
My
wish I
job
had,
immediately
I
moved to
think
the Philippines.
I want to have like a dry erase board and just like map,
Yeah,
like she started
the
here
time
and
the
then she
timeline of
went
the
over
insanity.
here.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no. Um, and I had a husband at that point, and I had already, one person. Had I been single, I would have totally taken that opportunity and gone. A lot of my friends, a lot of people who are very, very successful in the industry went um, to that opportunity in the Philippines, built out a very strong operations there. But for me, I was 4 weeks in, something like that. I couldn't, it was too much for me. So I did not take that opportunity. However, I did end up staying in London, which was great because we had already relocated and just made the decision that that was probably the best place for us.
uh,
So we did.
about a minute or two back here, you mentioned that when you opened the UK side, that they tried
Yeah.
to do things in a similar fashion to the North American side, and it didn't work out. So, is that why they're like, oh, we need to figure out a different part of the world to open up in? That's kind of where the Philippines came to be. Does it?
Um, do you know what? No, so the Philippines was going to be their operational hub for customer service, for development, all that sort of thing. And also, yeah, new brands and new market entry. The Listen, I think when in the UK, so when how the UK started, let's say, Calvin Ayre was the owner of Bodog. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he is a long time legend in this space. He started Bodog back in the 90s. I think it was 1998 or 9. It had a very, very strong global presence industry-wide. It had a very strong brand, especially in North America, but pretty much globally. Um, Lots of sponsorships with like MMA fighting and things like that. So they had the branding down, and I think, and they also had a UK license. I think where it went wrong was, like I said, the market here was very, very saturated and noisy. And probably when I came over, the writing was already on the wall. I didn't know that. I was very young. And obviously it was because it was 4 weeks into my role in London. But but yeah, I think they could have been they are very, could have been and are very successful globally, pretty much anywhere. London's expensive. Oh, this is what I was going to say. Before that, we hired a lot of people out of Ladbrokes, William Hill, Paddy Power, the best of the best. That was how Calvin Ayre hired. He was like, just pick the best. And when you pick the best of the best, you get really great work. However, as a startup founder, you probably know this, Travis, they don't always work together. Someone's job is very finite at where it ends, and they're not willing to get their hands dirty when you've reached that sort of I am the greatest SEO person in the world or the greatest creative director, in gaming, that sort of thing. It's very hard to get them to get their hands dirty and work together. So I think it was a little bit of that. So we already had lots and lots of British people or people that were in the UK working for Bodog. That was a natural office setup. I think the marketing position just wasn't, like I said, we couldn't have known, but it was just too noisy to come in and do what we wanted to do.
So, because you have the experience on the North American and the UK side, and then you keep mentioning that's oversaturated, noisy, do you
Mm.
think now in 2025 that the US side is saturated, noisy? And if not, or if it is, do you think somebody that is not currently in the North American space can become, maybe like a 1% market share essentially of where we are right now in the US?
Yeah, it's fairly similar to what we see happening with DraftKings and FanDuel, for sure. Um, or it was, I should say. There were a couple big companies that owned, most of the market share. Now, still in the UK, it's possible to come in and make a good living, right? Like there's still, enough customers, enough changes in user behavior that you can take that market share for sure. I think it's the same in the US, right? Like every single state has its own culture, has its own, way to go viral, that sort of thing, right? You have to understand that particular market. You can't just copy paste 50 different times or however, what is it, 38 different times for sports betting. It doesn't work like that. You need to have a strategic view on that. And I think those, particularly startups who have a strategic view, will be able to do that.
For the wanting to move you to the Philippines side, what year was that on this timeline?
2012, it was 4 months. It was like, no, 4 weeks after the end of August. So it was about September 2012.
And then when you said I that's not something that I'm interested in doing, how did your
Yeah.
relationship with Bodog essentially go? Was it like, oh, we'll just keep you as is, or did it like sour it at all?
So I went back to, because I was just in like a hotel apartment sort of thing. We were still looking for a place to live. I went back to Montreal, but we had already sold our place in Montreal. But we went back and we drove around North America for the whole entire summer, which was really fun. Got to see everybody that we know and love around North America. And through that, that's when we sort of decided, let's go back to London, even though I'm not going to have a job there and see how it works. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's soured at all. I think my decision was respected, but you still got to find a job after that.
So then you do your road trip. You then say, okay, let's go
Mhm.
back to the UK. You're there, and how long from you going back does it take you to get back either into the space or just get a job in general?
Yeah, not at all. Well, took a couple weeks. Um, like I said, Bodog was a really well-known global presence brand. Like that's all you sort of needed to say. I decided to go work for a supplier in the space because I really wanted to understand in the UK who was buying, who the major decision makers were within the operators, that sort of thing, how that revenue model worked. Because I'd only worked for an operator, so I wanted to make sure that working for a supplier, I understood how that worked and what that mentality was. So I worked for a supplier of poker loyalty software. This was back when poker was actually like a vertical within a very viable vertical within gambling. And that's loyalty was a big driver for revenue in that space, especially with poker.
So
Um,
I'm trying to keep track of the timeline here. And this
Still 2012.
so
We're still,
that road trip was a very was it sounded like it was a
yeah,
very long period of time, but essentially it was only like what like a few months before you went back to the
summer.
UK.
Yeah, it was a couple months. Yeah,
Okay, so we're still in
yeah,
2012 because your resume includes Bodog and you're saying they're global presence. Oh yeah, we definitely want her on the
yeah,
team. And now because it's a supplier, you have essentially a different job,
yeah,
different
yeah,
responsibilities, and but you found that you wanted to go after that because you wanted to learn more about the space and how things
yeah,
worked outside from the operator side.
yeah. And essentially, we built out a gamification platform. Was originally meant for poker, but now I think it's mostly in slots. They're doing it in slots. It's sort of um, instead of winning money, you can win prizes with through Amazon, or you can win a vacation, or that sort of thing. Those non-bonus type prizes through gamification.
And if you were to compare those two roles, the one you had for Bodog and the one you had for this entity, was which one do you think, like when you woke up in the morning to go to work, that you enjoyed the most?
Oh, Bodog. I already told you that. That was the
Yeah.
most fun job I ever had in my life. And still some of my best friends, not just industry friends, like friends, come from Bodog.
And then
It was great.
at this new opportunity on your second stint in the space in the UK, how long did that job essentially last for? And did you change and wear a lot of hats along the way?
So I did some business development with them. We did some product development, just did a lot of like manage their whole like because they did stuff that was outside of gaming as well. So manage the whole sort of gaming ecosystem. The company was called Initial Rewards, by the way. I think it's called Gift and Go now. But I had my son, who's 10 now, in 2015. And that's when obviously I took a little bit of time. 2014, let's say this, was when online gaming, sports betting, and casino got legalized in New Jersey. So that was the first time that was sort of the regulation. That was the first regulation to come into play. And so we did a lot of work in New Jersey trying to get sort of a licensed supplier, and we were doing lots of work with the companies that were setting up there. Most of them were actually English companies that were setting up there.
So you
Um,
were still in the UK, but you're trying to get access
yeah,
to
there's been a
the
lot of
US
time
market.
in New Jersey. Yeah. And then, like I said, in 2015, my son was born, and I took some mat leave time. And having a kid changes you in more ways than one. But I just decided at that point that my North Star and what I wanted to do was support women into leadership in the space. And I couldn't do that at that current job, for a number of different reasons. But that wasn't where I was going to find my calling, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I got a coach who was actually someone I worked with at Bodog, who was then coaching. So I had a coach for a couple of months. And out of that coaching was born All in Diversity Project, which was the nonprofit that I founded back in 2000 well, we started in 2016.
When you had that initial goal or that plan, did you know exactly how that was going to look or how
No,
you were going to shape it? Or was
no,
just, this is what I want?
no.
This is the overall goal. Let's figure out how to get to that goal.
Yeah. So I knew that what was going, there are little things that happened in between there. I ended up winning some award, Women in Gaming Award in between there, um, randomly. But then I had, kind of said to my boss, I would like to do more of that. I think we should be supporting more women in space. No one's talking about supporting women in space. I feel like I'm the only one, and it just wasn't available, right? It just wasn't, no one was talking about it back then. And it just wasn't on anyone's radar. No one can see how we could be better or make money from it or anything like that. So I ended up leaving to go pursue that. And like I said, I got a coach. We clarified it, we got laser focused on it. And then my business partner, Tina Thacker Rankin, and I started that back in 2016. And it took a long time. It took a year at least to get anyone to listen to us and give us money. A long time. It was
And
poor.
was this still from you being in the UK?
Yeah, we stayed. I'm still in the UK. We're still here.
So there's never a transition from what you said right now,
No,
2016 to 2025. It's
no.
all
Both my
operating.
kids were born here. Yeah,
Okay.
both my kids were born here, and we've stayed.
So now that we've launched
Yeah,
the Women in Gaming supportive
yeah.
brand, how, from, I guess, how it was or your idea of what it was going to look like day one to where it looks like now,
Yeah.
how much did that shift?
Um, so I was actually just talking to a new startup about this recently. You know how when you're starting out and you have this idea, but it might be controversial? This was very controversial, right? Like no one was like, well, if you're going to let more women in, like what happens to me? Like a lot of that, right? Like why don't they have an International Men's Day? A lot of that. This was 10 years ago. We've come very far. But it was very controversial, and we tried to be very diplomatic at the beginning. We're like, oh, we're just going to help businesses be more diverse and inclusive. Um, but you got to say the thing. You know what I mean? So, like, sometimes you just got to say the thing, even if it might either piss people off or rub people the wrong way. If it's in you, sometimes you just got to say it, right? So, we said it. And in 2018, and it did rub some people the wrong way. I think we had, yes, we had some trolls. But in 2018, the media descended onto one of our industry events, like descended. It was like the BBC, the Sun, the Daily Mail, like British tabloid descended, Sky, and called out the industry for being sexist and exclusive and, let's say archaic and things like that. Painted women, all those types of things. And the only little tiny stand was our little tiny stand that was like trying to rage against the machine, if you will. And we got sort of pulled into that because we were the only ones. So timing's everything, if anyone's listening. It's worth it to say the thing, but that just skyrocketed us. Like that was just like, okay, everyone gets it now. No one wanted their mom to know that they worked in this seedy, sexist industry because they were reading it on mainstream news. It was all same time as Me Too. There was all kinds of stuff happening globally around it, not just in gaming, but it just sort of blew that apart. And so, yeah, right place, right time. We started working with, like, I think our first paying big, promoter advocate was Flutter, which was great. But along comes, Playtech and, Betson and, all the massive, massive brands, Gig, all these big brands are still around today supporting us. So that really, really helped. Although it was very painful to begin with, and 2018 was no one wants to look at that ever again. It was helpful for us.
When you first kind of started at that actual, like you said, the event where you had the big news
Yeah.
brands that were there and over it, were you before you it blossomed into like, oh, right place, right time, like day one, where you're like, oh, we're gonna get a lot of eyeballs on us now, and you're kind of like, are you nervous on how that's going to turn out, or were you confident the entire way, like, oh, eyeballs equals success with what we're trying to accomplish?
Honestly, we didn't think about anything like that. Like, I genuinely lived and breathed for this mission, right? Like, I didn't care that we weren't getting paid. Nothing was being spoken about. We started very, very smallly to whisper about it. And then it just snowballed really. But like I said, I didn't care. Like that's what I was gonna do no matter what. And honestly, to this day, it's still sort of that's what gets me up in the morning for sure.
And then I know you said you got a lot of the big brands started paying
Mm,
attention after the
yeah.
fact. So how did that those sponsorships shift what your original idea became into what it is
Hmm.
afterwards?
Yeah. So, uh, our idea was always going to be the same. We were going to give the tools to businesses to make DEI a boardroom discussion, right? If you're talking about digital transformation, you're also going to talk about diversity, equality, inclusion. And whatever you need to measure ROI, we'll give you the same on DEI, right? And we did that, right? Um, I some of the things, socially, everyone tries to shift, for their own agenda. A lot of people wanted us to become the harassment police. We were not the harassment police. Or, the police at industry trade shows and that sort of thing. And, it's really hard not to get distracted with all of that. But I think we did a pretty good job staying on the path.
And then now, it's because this was, I believe, when it was a brain baby, when it first started was
Yeah.
2016, roughly.
Yeah, I would say we started in 2016. I think we officially incorporated early 2017. Yeah.
And then is this something that you were still that's still a massive part of your day to day, or did you step away, or
Yeah,
how
I
did that
stepped
work?
away in December this year, actually, because my energy, my personal energy, was uh, shifting towards me wanting to actually impact individuals rather than big corporations, um, and working on entrepreneurship and making sure that that's more inclusive for people who want to start their own businesses and work in that space.
So from 2017, when this officially got legs, to you stepping away in late December
Mhm.
2024,
24.
what was there anything else that was going on with what you were doing in the space? Was this your sole focus for
Mhm.
those seven
No,
years?
no, no. I also so we did that. That was a not-for-profit, and not-for-profits don't pay all the bills sometimes. But I also worked for a company called Happy Hour, and I started that in 2022. Happy Hour was a VC that was investing in iGaming. They were incubating companies and investing in iGaming companies globally. That was funny. The connection is very much through All in Diversity Project though. So one of when 2018 happened at ICE and the media descended, I had been bugging Robin Reed, who is the managing partner at Happy Hour. I've been bugging Robin Reed. He was the founder of Gig for a long time. Like, come, this is the right thing to do. Like, you guys are well placed. Like, uh, his he is Norwegian, and a lot of his staff was also Norwegian. Norway is famous for being a bit more progressive on the ESG and DEI side of things. So I was like, come on, this is and anyways, 2018 happened. I got a immediate yes after 2018 happened. They were a joy to work with. And then in 2022, I was just like, listen, we worked well together before. I like you. I like what you're doing. If you're ever, if there's anything in happy hour that I could assist with, I would love to join. So I did. I also did a little bit of time with SBC, so I've worked on the event side of things, and I think my title was Global Relationship Director, which is kind of a wanky title, but yeah, just making sure that the right people were coming in, especially operators, the buyers, were coming in, that we were building good relationships with them. So I've done that, and that's when I got the most chance to work with Sue Schneider, who you also know, who we work with at Defy the Odds. But she also sat on my board at All in Diversity Project as well.
So I believe we're at roughly 2022, 2023, where
Yeah.
you are essentially now. I don't know if would you say that you're spreading yourself a little thin because you're doing so many things, or you're doing so many things you're
No.
passionate about. So it's just like keep giving you more
Yeah.
opportunities.
So in 2022, 2023, All In had a pretty good engine running. At that point, we were 5, 6 years old. We did an annual benchmarking survey. We did a scholarship. There was a couple of initiatives, but they were all running pretty smoothly. And I had a business partner who was also involved in the operations of that. I went to go work for Happy Hour because, like I said, I was getting that itch. Obviously, you work in startups, you know how addicting it is. But it was a good opportunity for me to learn another side of the industry, an industry that I continue to, love and support. So that was a good move for me then.
So we're only a few years away, or maybe even a year and a half away from where we are now today. So from having that, uh, I believe you said global partnerships role at SBC, and having the happy hour role, and then also working on your own brain baby, which is still growing legs. How long did you having all of those roles last for before you started
Yeah.
kind of taking back a little bit more of your time?
So SBC I started in November of 2019. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. The events industry died.
I don't know what I can't remember what happened
We
in
all
March
know. We don't
2020.
need to talk about it. The events industry died, and we were doing a lot of like online webinars and things like that. So, like, I didn't even do a live event with SBC, like, probably for a year and a half. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll just blame COVID for all of that. So I wasn't there very long. And like I said, a lot of the work we did was virtual events. 2022, so that's 2019. We lived through COVID. I was still with SBC. And then 2022, I took the role with Happy Hour. So it is fairly linear. I was only doing All In and SBC together, and then I was doing All In and Happy Hour together. And then, like I said, in December of 2024, I left All in good hands, and Sue, Paris, and I were all sort of in a place of transition. And as you know, that a couple months beforehand, we had started Defy the Odds because of our shared passion of startups and, supporting the industry in general, making it
So
a better place.
with that exact same, that's actually exactly what I was going to say. So with the concept of making the industry a better place, with your nonprofit brand that you kind of already started, how, with your discussions with Paris and Sue, how were they in terms of, I so we I did this was successful, but I think Defy the Odds should look like this. So is
Hmm.
how, I guess the question is, how different did
Yeah.
you want this to look from what you've already done?
Um, well, listen, we all went to Curacao because why not? That's a great place to do your brainstorming. And it was like, okay, well, let's just throw out sort of all of our assets and all of the things individually that we love and want to work on, and let's see where it crosses over, right? Paris was already doing her angel investment and advising startups from all sectors, basically from all, and she's got a very, very, very strong operational background. Sue was running things like First Pitch with SBC. She was doing lots of pitch competitions. She also was advising and supporting the startups through SBC. And then I had come from Happy Hour, but also the three of us have always, found friendship in supporting female leadership within the space. Sue and I started back when we were at SVC together, a networking group of female CEOs in the space. You want to guess how many are in the group now? It's still going. It's called the CEOs. We still do that, but guess
What,
how many?
well, what was the
They
number
are
you said you
female
launched
CEO.
with?
The membership requirement is you are a female CEO in iGaming.
And when you first launched that, though, how many did you start with?
12.
And you're asking me to guess how many there are
How many,
now.
how many are in the group now?
What was the time in between the launch to now?
We started it during COVID, so 2020, 5 years ago.
You started with 12. Let me see
That's
if I
another great story. You're asking me all these questions.
this.
I started it because I was chatting to Paris one day and I was like, look at you, you're not alone anymore. Because Amy Howe had just been appointed, Denise Coates was Bet365, Shelly Haddad was the CEO of Casumo. There was like big brands, all had female uh, CEOs. And I was like, look at you, not alone anymore. And she's like, I don't know any of those people. And I was like, well, I do. We should all like, do something.
Yeah.
And that's how CEOs got born. But
If I were to guess, based on the
yeah.
5 years and based on the networking that I have done in the space, where I know how many companies are run and led by female CEOs, I would say, just rounding the number, at least 100 in a 5 year span. Is that close, or am I?
I'm looking it up right now. Hang on. I gotta look at my database. Oh, I gotta scroll way down here. It is 183
So I'm
globally, all
technically far
continents.
away, but I'm right. The fact that it was over 100. So yeah,
Yes.
so that's great.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's over a 5 year span. Go ahead.
Yeah, we do that for fun.
Yeah.
We see each other at industry events. We have a WhatsApp group. We do stuff on LinkedIn, but it's just really a support network. But anyways, we've always done that. Paris was day one, basically, right? And we've run that. We meet 4 times a year online, but we've done that since the darkest days of COVID.
So now, well, do you consider that like an actual like registered organization, or is that just more of a
No,
community?
it's just more of a community. We talked about monetizing it. I it's not the right forum for that. So it's much more of a cheerleader support network. It's quite good. We have lots of people who've tried to buy into it and things like that, want to sponsor us, but we've sort of kept the gate up.
So now, August 2025, where you are in the space, is Defy the Odds the sole focus, or is it the main focus, and
Yes.
you're still dipping your toes in other pools?
So CEOs, obviously I'm a member and we keep that going, but that's sort of owned by everyone. That just, runs as it will. But yes, Defy the Odds is the sole focus. I do have a couple board roles that I do. I sit on a one of the happy hour casino boards, and I'm chair of governors at my kids' school, so that keeps me busy. But otherwise, Defy the Odds.
And where Defy the Odds is today, is that originally what you guys were discussing on your nice little huddle up in Curacao, which I know you just. I'm like, oh,
Oh yeah. So, anyways, yeah, when I was talking about women in leadership, we've all done that, and that's how we're friends, and that's how we know each other. But it was sort of that, that women or sort of inclusive industry and startups where we crossed over, and I was like, we have to address the fact that the ecosystem is lacking. And we have to work on that, and we have to work on that on all fronts, right? To bring new money in who want to invest in new, we're all going to win when there's new perspectives and new people building
right.
businesses. We all win.
So if we typically on these episodes, we kind of start with the first, like I said, the first initial interest you had, which was on the horse racing side to where you are now in 2025. But I am curious, because this is a relatively new thing you're working on with Defy the Odds, is where, not where it is right now, but where do you like, if everything happened exactly how you want it to happen in the next 5 years, how will that have shifted or grown to?
Okay. Well, I would like to see way more companies working on entrepreneurship. I would like them to see them supporting entrepreneurs within their business. There's a lot of companies within iGaming that make a ton of money, but are missing out on loads of opportunities. Example, I think RG probably someone can solve it somewhere. There's some hackathon or something within gaming, yet it plagues us. And I think that's just because we're very siloed and we're not talking about those types of things. We're not supporting people who might want to, solve problems and make it a revenue stream, that sort of thing within businesses, because it's too hard, it's risky. So I'd like to de-risk entrepreneurship for a lot of people, see a lot more new people try it, enter it, and have the support network that they want. We're building an online community that will hopefully fill the gaps between live is always best, right? Building a network live is always best, but we'll hopefully fill the gaps for people and make it not so lonely when you're building a business and have that support network. I would like to see that, thriving and people getting the support they need to start their businesses and grow them. And I would also like to see some of the larger tier one companies, partnering with startups. A lot more, I should say. Some of them do, but it's few and far between. So I'd like to see a lot more innovation happening on the corporate development side.
And on that note, I do, just because this is the first thing that popped in my head when you're talking about the entrepreneur community, like innovation incubator kind of things. I think one of the last times I've seen you in person was at the Zero Labs incubator in Vegas, and
Yeah.
it was literally just 3 days of our lives there, and like seeing the people that were in my cohort were part of my 3 day weekend per se. Like
Mm.
doing the pitch competitions at SBC, winning the pitch competitions, and doing all these crazy things. We have the same relationship as if we were in like a 4 year university and like a fraternity
Yeah.
essentially, and it was only
Yeah.
like 3 days, but we're
It
like
was
all
great.
rooting for each other. So
Yeah.
if you have no idea what that is, I believe the website is zerolabs.io. Check that
Yeah.
out. They do a
We're
lot
going
of,
back this year. Defy
yeah.
the Odds is going back. We're going back for the G2E one. You going back?
I don't know if I won't be able to be early enough to be present at the Zero Labs
Yeah.
cohort. That's right in the same
Yeah. It's
weekend,
the
but
weekend before.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'll be in Vegas for G2E this year.
Yeah.
So we've kind of came to the 2025 side. We kind of sprinkled a little bit of what Defy the Odds is going to look like in the next few years. But the question I always love leaving on is, if you were to look at your entire lifespan, there's a lot of things that you were in control of, and there's things that you aren't in control of, i.e., COVID. I call all of these things, and most people refer to them as the butterfly effect. If you were to attribute where you are now to one specific butterfly effect throughout your entire life, whether it was something that was in your control or outside of your control, what is that one happenstance that led you to where you are today?
Uh, Let me say it was one conversation. It wasn't the most pleasant conversation I ever had in my life. But as I was saying, I told you I was talking about wanting to support women in leadership in the industry. And the words that were said to me were, if you want to plan tea parties, do so on your own time. And there is nothing like the fury that can come from, hell hath no fury than a woman scorned. I promise you that. But it set me on my path. I'm so grateful for those words, actually, because you got to commit at that point, right? It's like, do I really want to do this, or, and end these types of conversations, or, do I want to stay comfortable? So it was probably that.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story with us on this episode. If you guys do have interest in Defy the Odds or Zero Labs or anything that we talked about on this episode, please send her a connection request on LinkedIn. I can't promise you she's going to accept it, but shoot her a message nonetheless
Totally accept it.
and see what
Any
happens.
friend of yours is a friend of mine, Travis.
Well, all right. Then all of you just bombard her all at the same time. As soon as the episode drops, just start spamming the messages in the request and have her say, "Why did I agree to this?" But thank you again for sharing your story, and
Thanks, Travis.
If you guys did enjoy the show, please subscribe to whatever network you're watching this on, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. We have plenty of episodes coming out every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.